Young man on the side of the road, lost and beat up with nowhere to go. Smells like a hangover from days ago. He does what he can to survive. Single mom with a dead-end job, 90-hour week just to keep what she's got. Bills add up and now she's caught. She does what she can to survive. Let me say, love won't take away the pain. Don't be afraid, 'cause it will never walk away. If you're scared that you don't matter, and you're lost and need to be found, if you're looking for a savior, all you gotta do is turn around. Some turn to a bottle, some turn to a drug, some turn to another's arms. It seems like it's never enough. But I won't say that you will never fail again. There is grace to wash away your every sin. If you're scared that you don't matter, and you're lost and need to be found, if you're looking for a savior, all you gotta do is turn around. No one listens to you anymore, and your heart has broken down. You don't need to move, love has come to you. All you gotta do is turn around. All you gotta do is turn around. Turn around. You don't have to take the broken road. You can turn around and come back home. You don't have to take the broken road. You can turn around and come back home. You don't have to take the broken road. You can turn around and come back home. You don't have to take the broken road. You can turn around and come back home. If you're scared that you don't matter, and you're lost and need to be found, if you're looking for a savior, all you got is turn around. No one listens to you anymore, and your heart has broken down. You don't need to move, Lord has come for you. All you gotta do is turn around. All you gotta do is turn around. Turn around. You may be seated. You can open up to page number 120. 120. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. See you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see. I want to see. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see. I want to see. See you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy, holy. See you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to sing. Sing holy with us. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to sing. Come on, Mikey, play that guitar, buddy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. I want to see you. I want to see you.
Yeah. Woo. Great job, band. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm John Mason Smith. I'm on staff here at the Flora-Bama Church. Thank you, all you first-time visitors, for coming today. We have a saying, and it's on your. It's actually on everything now. It's on the back of our shirts. So it's okay to not be okay, and by that we mean you're welcome just as you are, and you're now a you're now a bar church goer. That's why you rock. Thank you. New status in life.
Tell your friends.
You can Facebook that. I'm a Bard church goer. Hey, we did want you to get a program. Dan's going to refer to this thing many times when he gets up here to speak. If you don't have one, shoot your hand up. I have handy volunteers to come bring them out to you. So you're going to need one. There's some good stuff in there. So one over here, 2 over there, 3 over there. Come on, Keith. Be handy. No helper at all. All right, well, you can get up and see Keith. Hey, and there's your program today, too. On the back, we have this little thing. It's called Monday Night Replay. If you want to talk more about today's subject and you want to just sit around, eat some free tacos, free soft drinks, talk about this, the information's on your program. You can jump on that. Hey, well, I've got something for our regular guests and for our first-time guests. At the information tables, which are on each side of the room, we have these information cards. They're called Next Steps. You can put a prayer request on that. You can also sign up for small groups or say you're interested. We have several new small groups that are just started. We hope that everyone who comes here on a regular basis goes to a small group somewhere. We'd love to have you plugged in. If you're not, we'd love to get you signed up for that. And you can also sign up for that all-important baptism. We'll be doing those today after this service out on the beach. And you're welcome to come join us on that. Hey, when you're done with that, you can leave it at the information table, or you can put them inside our giving stations. This is where we have you give money, but it's these giving stations. There are 3 of them. One there, one right there. You see the big sign? And then outside, there's another one. When you give money to this ministry, let me tell you, we really try to use that money to help people, rescue people on the coast. We bring God behind bars. We take the gospel behind a prison in Escambia County. They do a weekly replay of this service. We also have, we also have a program to feed about 20 families a week through Escambia County, Florida. And we also work here just among the people of the Flora-Bama area, rescuing their lives. Thank you for your donations. When you give, we put every dollar of that back to work in this community. Thank you so much. Hey, I've got a question. If you've never been here before, I'm not going to ask you to shoot your hand up. I might. Just think about it. But I'm going to do a contest. Now, I know you've been to the Flora-Bama before, but if you haven't been to the church at the Flora-Bama before, I'm going to give one of you who are in that category a free T-shirt. All right? Now you're going to put your hand up. All right. Show them the other side there, Brandon. My church is at the Flora-Bama. If you don't win this, you're not the one person to win this. If you stop at the gift shop on the way out, you can buy one of those. Hey, all you got to do is be farther away than everyone else. Where are you from? Shout it out now.
Silver Hill.
Arkansas.
Navarre.
Not going to win.
Orange Beach. Everywhere.
Brooklyn. Brooklyn.
Gulf Shores.
Where?
No.
Can you hear her? New York?
Fort Morgan's like its own country.
To New York. Are they in the same country? I got one way over here. Pennsylvania? Not
Pennsylvania.
Further. Not further than New York.
Who can beat Pennsylvania?
All right.
Oh, she's got a hand up.
Yell it out.
Bismarck?
Toronto.
Pittsburgh. Oh, Toronto.
Oh, I forgot to say this.
Canadians
Canada can't win. It's really, right now, the farthest. Anyone further than Toronto? I got one last hope.
Alaska.
Where's it? Well, no, I didn't hear her. I know Alaska. Yeah.
There we go.
Where? Longest contest ever. All right.
And they said my teaching degree in geography wouldn't pay off. I'm just kidding.
All right, I'm going to, against my better judgment, I'm giving it to Toronto.
That was awesome.
There's going to be another Winter Olympics, and we'll get even. All right. Hey, I want to invite everyone here to stand up, find someone you don't know, and shake their hand. Tell them good morning.
because you feel like, well, I love God and I'm a Christian, and so I shouldn't feel this way, but it's okay to not be okay, and you hear that time and time again in this church alone. And so I wrote this song called I Need You, because I've hit these moments where I just can't do it anymore, and I just have to turn it over to God because it's so much bigger than me. And we've all had that moment in our lives to where it's so much bigger than you, and we talk about not having idols and not having these things that you make bigger than God, but sometimes we make our problems bigger than God, and we don't even realize that we do that. So if there's something that you want to let go of while we're playing this song, just think about whatever that is for a second and then leave it here today, because it's not bigger than God, it's not bigger than anything. Whatever it is that you're going through is not bigger than God's love for you. So this song is called I Need You.
Looking for something I thought I could find, but I took the wrong path too many times. I needed a miracle, but I didn't believe that things could get better. Someone like me, 'cause I needed saving, helping hand. I needed something to help me understand. I needed something to quiet this pain, to make me feel better, to make me feel safe. I needed you. All right, Mike. I wanted a home, someone to love, 'cause life on the highway, it was never enough. I wanted to feel safe in open arms, and I didn't trust them, 'cause they only knew her. 'Cause I needed saving, helping hand. I needed something to help me understand. I needed something to quiet this pain, to make me feel better, to make me feel safe. I needed you. Dear God, if you're listening, I need you here tonight. Dear God, if you're listening, I need, 'cause I need His saving, helping hand. I needed someone to help me understand. I needed something to quiet this pain, to make me feel better, to make me feel sane. I needed you. Over and over, I needed you. More than every day, each and every time I pray, I needed you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
We're going to turn over to page number 130.
I have to go back on.
Okay. Listen, you got me in your...
I'll give you the words for this, but it's not actual tune. So.
Yeah, of course.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Well, I was blind, but now I see, and I got a peaceful, easy feeling here. I know you won't let me down, 'cause I'm already standing on solid ground. Was grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. I got a peaceful, easy feeling, and I know God won't let me down, 'cause I'm already standing on solid ground. Somebody locking on the lead guitar over here, come on. Been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. And I got a peaceful, easy feeling. I know God won't let me down, 'cause I'm already standing. Oh yes, I'm
Yeah. Well, good morning, everybody. Everybody good? We're so glad you guys are hanging out with us this morning. My name is Dan. If we've not yet met, I'm the pastor here at the Flora-Bama, and I'm super pumped about today for a bunch of reasons, but John mentioned it a moment ago, we've got a baptism right after service, and so whatever plans you got going on, just push them back about 15, 20 minutes. Our man, Lucky, one of our church family members, is going to be getting baptized today, and if you've never been to one of our baptisms, you need to go, and if you want to know what they're like, just ask somebody who has been to one. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing right down there in the biggest baptismal in the world behind us here. So, going to be a bunch of fun. We've been in a conversation over the last few weeks. We had a break in there for a couple weeks, but we've been talking about one of those topics that you kind of get like, oh man, we've been talking about the 10 Commandments, everyone's favorite subject of conversation. And so a couple, this was several weeks ago, like the second week, we jumped in on the 10 Commandments. I was standing right out here after service, and a gentleman walked by, and he said, "Hey, preacher, are we going to do all 10 of these commandments?" I said, "Well, I was planning on it. Got some objection to it, or is there something you want to leave out, not talk about?" He said, "Well, I don't know when it's coming, but I figure in a few weeks we're going to do that whole honor your father and mother talk, huh?" I said, "Well, it's one of the 10. I'm going to probably talk about it." He goes, "Well, you ain't never met my mother." Because it's an interesting conversation to have, right? And I think when we think about the 10 Commandments, we either don't really enjoy the conversation because we know what we really should just call them is God's big 10 rules that everyone should obey or you're in trouble. But that was too long. So we just call them the Commandments. And if you take them and you just rip that page or two out of the Bible and read them just for the content of what they are, they seem very interesting. They seem like something that nobody really wants to talk about. Some of them, it's almost like, why is that even in there? It's so obvious, right? And then there's others, like we talked about last week, to take a day of rest, or what the Bible called the Sabbath. It's like, isn't that kind of outdated? Aren't those things kind of outdated? And we don't really need to live those things out. Some of them are very common sense. Some of them may be controversial, and I would agree that if you just ripped a couple pages just out of the Bible and they don't fit into some story, then they're kind of an odd set of grouping. Like, why those 10? Why 10? And then and why did he, stop at 10, and why those specific ones? And if you look at them within the story in which they were given, it's a completely different conversation. And you can read that story for yourself. As a matter of fact, there's a couple different places that the 10 Commandments are found. Now, to be honest, they're spread out throughout the Old and New Testament, the books that were gathered before Christ and then those after. And they're in different places. Jesus quoted quite a few of them, and they're said throughout. But there's two places where they're spelled out, 1 through 10. And the first place in the Bible to look is the book of Exodus. That's the second book in the Bible, Genesis and then Exodus. And in the 20th chapter, Moses has this conversation with God, and these commandments are given. And then the 5th book of the Bible, Deuteronomy, is the second place that they're given. But they weren't just kind of thrown out of the sky and God, 10, here you go, Moses. Try those 10 first, and we'll get back to some more later. It's these 10, and why 10? I can't really tell you why there was 10 specific ones. There's not really a lot of conversation about them, but it's like the kid who, he had that same kind of conversation, like 10 commandments. I heard Mom at church say, how many were there again, Mom? He asked his mother after Sunday school. How many commandments were there again? And she said 10. And then that boy kind of looked at his mom, kind of confused. Is that what the teacher said? And he said, well, Mom, if God has 10, only 10, why do you have so many? And oftentimes it's like it was almost like we give rules, reactionary rules. So we're not supposed to run in the house in this area because there's breakables. And so the first time a kid runs in the house, you stop them, have that conversation with them. Hey, we don't run here. Here's why. And or maybe your family didn't have conversations. It was just a slap. Hey, quit running in the house. That was the conversation. But usually those are reactionary rules, and they're good. And I'm not saying, you can't think of, can you imagine trying to lay out to a 5-year-old every rule you're going to have in your house all at once? A kid's going to run away, So some of them have to be reactionary. But these 10 commandments weren't reactionary. God wasn't watching and going, all right, there's 4. I'm going to have these 4 conversations. 10. It's about 10 things that these idiots are doing. We got to go down there and straighten them out. That wasn't what was going on. In fact, it was not reactionary at all. It was like a preemptive strike, because there was a group of people that were fully devoted to worshiping and serving God. And they were what the Bible calls the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, the Israelites. And they were committed to worshiping the one true God, but for hundreds of years they had been enslaved by another group of people. Upwards, some biblical historians believe upwards of 400 plus years. It's a long time. That's generation after generation. That's not just just grandma and grandpa. It's generation and generation and generation. And so this group that God rescues from Egypt to bring them to their own land where they're going to be able to be their own nation, to set up their own government, to have their own laws, and to flourish within their own society, they've been living under slavery for as long as these individuals can remember, because it was great-great-great-great-grandma and grandpa that were the first original free and then enslaved. So these people know nothing, and many historians believe there was upwards of 3 million of these Hebrew people. That's a whole bunch of people. And when you've lived your entire life, and your parents' life, and your grandparents, and on, your life as a slave, you interact with people a certain way. When a foot's been on your neck and you have been told what to do, how to do it, and when to do it, when you've been treated as less than human, and when you have not been able to make decisions for yourself for a long time, you interact and look at the world a certain way. And so what God is doing in these 10 commandments is not really throwing out 10 rules. He's laying out for a nation of people a way to live and interact and see the world. Brand new. Now, I can't go back over the last several weeks to break down how every one of those are not necessarily what they seem. But today we are going to look at what a verse out of the Bible, it's the 5th commandment of the 10 that, listen, I didn't even grow up in church. We weren't even one of those CEO Christmas, Easter only Christian type people. We didn't go to church. And you guys ever heard that, CEO? No? Okay. Obviously, you're not one of those people because it's not Christmas or Easter, so maybe you've never heard the phrase. But I still knew, I couldn't have said it by verbatim, I still knew this commandment, right? And if you want to grab your program, it's the yellow program you got. Now listen, if you didn't get a program, shoot your hand up, we'll get you one. The verses I'm going to read are all in the program. But there's a very interesting commandment which ends up number 5. It's in the top 5 of God's big top 10. And here's how it states it again. You could read it in Exodus or Deuteronomy. We're just going to read from Deuteronomy. And here's what it says. Honor your father and your mother as the Lord your God has commanded you. Then you will live a long life, full life in the land the Lord your God is giving you. Now, I remember it differently. We grew up, again, not necessarily church, but I remember hearing it something like this. And you may have heard it this way too, a different version of the Bible, King James. This was the New Living Translation. Honor your father and mother that things may go well with you and you will live long on the earth. Pretty sweet promise, right? And I knew it even though I wasn't a church person. Now, I don't know what kind of family you grew up in or the kind of family you care to admit that you grew up in. You may have changed some of the stories when company's over. But in my household, I wouldn't have said I'm doing it because I should honor my father and mother, but you just honored, my parents were together for a chunk of my life. They got divorced when I was in high school, right before high school, and so they were together for a lot of the time and then separated. We were in different homes and stuff like that, but you still honored mom and dad. How many guys grew up in a family where honor wasn't optional? You did it, right? Yeah, or you got smacked or disciplined, let's use that. We got disciplined. Smacked, all right, yeah, we'll just use that word, all right. So, though I did not know that it was even one of the commandments, I knew it was a thing, right? I knew it was kind of one of those church things, and it was enforced at my house. We never said it, but honor mom and dad was kind of enforced right at my house. And so what would be a really great conversation to have today would be, family is so important to God that he placed it in his top 10. And there's this whole group of people that are getting a new way to live from their Creator. And family was so important to their Creator that he put it in the list. And that wasn't even just in the top 10, it was in the top 5 of the top 10. What that says to me is that family really, really matters to God. And if it matters that much to God, it should definitely matter to me. So if I realize that that my family matters that much to God, it should without question matter that much to me. And to be honest, we could spend hours today talking just about that one subject. And believe it or not, the Bible has a ton to say about family. About kids and about parents and about grandparents and about relationships. And it has all kinds of conversations about parenting and siblings. And I got to tell you this great story I heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but this boy at this last church, I was pastoring in Las Vegas, and this young boy shouted out in class, they're teaching this commandment. They're teaching 10 commandments. Good thing to teach kids, right? And it's a great one. Parents love when you teach the kids in church, honor your father and mother. You got them hooked. If the first week you show up to church and you have kids and they go to kids church and they come back down, what'd you guys learn today? Honor father and mother. That's the new home church for life, So they were teaching that that week. This new family shows up, and this little kid, I was told in that class, raised their hand and said, okay, honor father, mother. Is there any commandments about your brothers and sisters? That's a pretty innocent question. And what I was told from the teacher in the church that we were at said, this kid, probably a third grader, shouted out, yeah, thou shalt not murder. How great is that? I know that for you, but the kid, I don't know if you've ever murdered one of your relatives before. And so we could talk about family and functionality within family and functionality within a relationship and how all of that works. And to be honest, man, we wouldn't just talk about that for hours today. We could do weeks and weeks and weeks on that conversation, right? Because of the functionality and the dysfunctionality when you take these people and you put them all in a home together, right? Not to mention the complexities of individual personality, all that goes with it. But I would not be doing my job as a pastor at teaching God's Word if we didn't just attack this verse for what it actually just says. Now, I do think because God talks about honoring mom and dad, and he puts that high of a priority on it, we should place that high of a priority on our families. Yeah? And I think we would all agree, but agreeing doesn't necessarily give priority to our families. Now, we can't talk about that. So, honor your father and your mother as the Lord your God has commanded you. Let's go back to my buddy out there that said, hey, you ain't met my mother. That's a tough conversation to have. So here's what would probably happen. I don't know for sure, but probably if we all individually all went out and grabbed a coffee and I heard your story and I asked you a simple question. Tell me about your relationship, whether they're alive or not alive today, with your mom and with your dad. There's a couple things that are going to come out of that conversation. For some of us, that conversation would be, you'd have me laughing in moments or crying about these great memories that you have, and you might not be able to contain emotion. You ever tell a story that happened a long time ago and that those tears start bubbling up, or you start laughing, no one else is laughing because they don't know, they weren't there, and that would probably start to happen. You would probably get a little emotional. You'd have great stories, and I can tell you, me personally, yesterday, my dad and I, we jumped on FaceTime, and my dad lives up in northern Minnesota, and we're way down here, and he's freezing, and I'm sweating, and I remind him all the time that I'm at the beach. It's great, and we're FaceTiming with the grandkids, and we're laughing, and we've got my dad and we've got some great memories together, and you may have some great memories with your parents, and I wouldn't ask you if your parents are perfect or not, because we all know the answer to that question, but good memories a lot of us would share. But that's not everybody, is it? No, because there's going to be a whole other group of people that we sit down and ask the exact same question. Hey, tell me about your relationship with your mom or with your dad. And those stories would be painful or non-existent. You don't know, you never knew one of your parents. And if you did know them, the stories that you're telling are painful and very serious, and some of you would just rather not talk about it, right? You just would rather not have that conversation. And that is a difficult thing to have. And then there'd be another group of us that have some of both, right? Some of both. I've got some of both. I've got some amazing stories and great things that happen. There's some painful moments within my family. And I think a lot of us live in that world where some great, some bad, but some of us have mostly amazing stories. Some of us have some really painful stories. So what do we do now with a commandment that is demanding that we honor someone that we don't even talk to anymore? That's tough. Or we don't get along with, or that has passed away. And I would love to spend time just specifically talking about that. See, I'd love to spend time just talking about family, because I think we could for a while. But there's something going on in this verse beyond just family, and it's specifically about mom and about dad. And so if I were to ask you right now, how are things going with just face value on the fifth commandment in your life? Be very diverse answers. Don't you think there's some pretty diverse answers? But I think before we can talk about that, before we can talk about honoring mom and dad, there is something that's getting missed in this verse that's behind family, that's behind just mom and dad. It's the thing that's behind the thing that's behind the thing that makes this commandment relevant and life-giving to every person in this room, regardless if your parents are alive or not alive, if you're on good terms or bad terms, if the stories that you would tell would be hilarious and fun or painful and sad. Because that entire fifth commandment starts with a very interesting word, and it's the word honor. It's the word honor. Now, we can't talk about honor without opening up this very interesting letter in the Bible. There's this gentleman that gets a lot of credit in the Bible for doing something very miraculous besides Jesus and walking on water for a minute. His name is Peter. Now, I don't know the circumstances surrounding Peter's upbringing, and if you read Peter's story a little bit in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, the four Gospels, you're sometimes wondering, why in the world did God pick this dude, right? He's a mess throughout the Gospels. But God saw something. Aren't you glad that God picks messes too? Yeah, I am. So, God picks this guy named Peter to be one of his original 12 disciples and eventually spread the gospel. We're here today because a guy named Peter was part of spreading the gospel and gave his life for the spreading of the gospel, was crucified upside down, died as a result of preaching about Jesus. And that gospel spread from that area to the world. And this guy named Peter wrote a letter to a group of Christians that had kind of dispersed because of massive persecution. People were losing their lives for following Jesus. He was specifically writing this letter knowing it'd be passed around from house to house where these Christians were gathering away from persecution. And I say house to house, sometimes it was in caves, sometimes it was at night. It was just, you're kind of in seclusion to yourself because authorities at any time are going to break in and drag you out, jail time, death. So he writes this letter to a group of people spread out pretty far from each other, entire Asia Minor or modern-day Turkey, that whole area. And he starts now Christianity is not like a thing that everyone's talking about. There's a church on every corner. It is brand new. I mean brand new. People are just believing in Jesus for the very first time because he just got crucified a few years ago when this letter was written. And Peter is laying out now that you're part of the family of God, what does it look like to be part of how do you live being a part of the family of God? In your program, the next verses are pieces of that letter. Two pieces of that letter from Peter to these Christians spread all over the modern-day Turkey area. Here's what he says. He says, prepare your minds for action. In other words, get your head in the game and exercise self-control. See, he's starting to lay a foundation of these people. Put all your hope in the gracious salvation that will come to you when Jesus Christ is revealed to the world. In other words, I know things seem hopeless, guys. You're having to meet underground, you have persecution everywhere, but keep your hope focused on Jesus Christ. You must live as God's obedient children. So he's using this family term. Hey, we're all God's kids here. And this is how you should live. Don't slip back into your old ways of living to satisfy your own desires. You didn't know any better back then. In other words, there was a day when you weren't part of God's family. You made a bunch of dumb decisions. Now let's start to change. We're part of God's family. We're carrying his name. Let's make some changes. The next little piece is in the next chapter. He says this, for this is the will of God, by doing good, you put to silence the ignorance of foolish people. Live as people who are free, but don't use your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God. And then he starts to, we're not going to read all of them because it goes on through the rest of the chapter and the entire rest of the letter, but he starts to make a list of ways that you can live that are honoring to God. And the first one is honor everyone and then love the brotherhood. The brotherhood is a generic term. It's the best way that we can translate the family. It's the way that we translated it. It wasn't a male or female word. It was a unisex word. The brotherhood, the family, the group of us. We're all together in this thing. We're all part of God's family. So love each other, fear God, honor the emperor or those in political authority. He starts out with a very intense statement that only holds two words. Honor everyone. Now, there are lots of reasons why God has never asked my opinion on anything ever, nor will he. But one of them would have been, I would have kind of had a little bit of a rewrite to that statement. Because if you're anything like me, I am quick to give honor when honor is due, right? That's an honorable thing, to give honor where honor is due. But Peter takes it to a whole other level. Matter of fact, it wouldn't have been bad if we'd have just stuck with honor your father and mother. That's only like two people. You know what I'm saying? Then it's like honor everyone who deserves honor, okay. And now Peter's like, no, we got to take this a step further. Honor everyone. Now, what's interesting is what he said, honor everyone, but what's also interesting is what he didn't say, what I would have said. I would have said, honor everyone who is worthy of being honored. It's a no-brainer. Honor everyone that deserves honor. I'm not going to honor a dishonorable person. That's nonsense. It's not logical to honor someone who is not living honorably. Now, I'm going to live honorably, and I hope people would honor that, but I'm not going to honor someone who's not living honorably. What Peter does not say is just as important as what he does say. He does not say, honor those who deserve it. He does not say, honor those you agree with. Honor those that will honor you back. Honor everyone. I don't like that verse in the Bible. Can I just be honest with you? There's a few I don't like, but that's one, like, love your enemy. Don't like that one necessarily. Honor everyone. Honor everyone. How in the world is that possible? How in the world am I supposed to honor someone that I vehemently disagree with? And I don't want to get into some political conversation, but it wasn't that long ago that we were spitting hate and anger, and not necessarily you, but this country, towards individuals running for election of this country. There was a lot of dishonor going on. And every year, whether it's 4 or 8 years, or every term, I should say, whether 4 or 8 years, there's a whole bunch of dishonor happening because one group of people doesn't think that that person's worthy of honor. Right? That's how the system works. I did not vote for that person. They're not going to get my honor. Did you see what they did to me? They stabbed me in the back. I'm not going to honor them. There's no way in the world I'm going to honor mom. You have no idea what my mom has done. It's like my buddy a few weeks ago. You haven't met my mom, dude. But what's going on here goes beyond family, goes beyond honoring mom and dad, the fifth commandment, and it eventually, like with everything God says, it ends up in our laps as individuals. How you honor everyone? How in the world can I honor a parent, a sibling, an official, a president, a employee, a boss, a subordinate? How can I honor the neighbor, the person that isn't worthy of my honor? There's only one way. There's only really one way. How do you honor everyone? We don't honor because they deserve it. We honor because we, as individuals, are honorable. I honor others because I'm a person of honor. See, honor father and mother. Then Peter, it's so typical, right? He says honor everyone, and then at the end he's like, and yes, also honor the emperor. He already said honor everyone. Why did he bring it up again? Because you know someone's raised their hand. You mean her too? Yes, her too. She's in the everyone thing. Honor is almost nothing to do with the person you're honoring, but it has everything to do with your honor. Being an honorable person not only means you live honorably, but you give honor to others. And even when you don't like them, when you don't agree with them, even when they've done you wrong, how do you love your enemy? You love your enemy because Christ loved you. How do you honor someone that doesn't deserve honor? You become a person of honor. And listen, I get that most of us don't like that I just said. I get it. I can see it in your face. Because it's not logical. Because we grow up to honor respectable people. I'm not giving respect and honor to dishonorable people. And listen, if it's anything like the last service, there's going to be some serious disagreements that I had right out here with this thought. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to leave it in your lap to wrestle with. I'm going to leave it in your lap to wrestle with. I'm going to leave the idea that though you may disagree with it, that God might know better. I'm going to assume Peter did not accidentally write the word everyone in his letter. I'm going to guess that he was absolutely serious, that as a committed Christ follower, we will be honorable and we will honor those who deserve honor and those who do not deserve honor. Because honor is less about them, but it's all about me. It's all about me. So I think it forces us to ask a couple questions, right? I think it forces us to. So the thing behind if the thing behind the thing behind the thing is honor, then we start there. We start there. Do we want to be people of honor? And I don't think that's even I don't think anyone in this room would be like, nah, I'm kind of out on that whole being honorable thing. Of course we want to be people of honor, but the path of honor is a difficult path because pride has no place on the path of honor. Because as soon as you disagree or you've been wronged or they act in a way that you don't like, then we say, I am not going to honor that person. So pride will knock you off the path of honor very fast. Selfishness will knock you off the path of honor very, very quickly. And I know there's people in your minds rolling around like, how in the world am I going to honor this person? Can I tell you maybe the baseline best way to honor someone that you cannot figure out how to honor? Do everything you can to never dishonor them. Does that make sense? I was at a local coffee shop this week, and normally, if I go somewhere like that, I'm in the zone. I've got my earbuds in, I'm just plugging away on emails and writing messages, and I got up, used the restroom, stretched a little bit, came back, and I just got back in the zone. I forgot to put my earbuds back in, so music's playing, but I'm not even listening to it, and I accidentally overheard an entire conversation, I wasn't necessarily eavesdropping. To be honest with you, I didn't put my earbuds in, so I was probably intentionally eavesdropping. But just for the sake of the conversation, I was not intentionally eavesdropping on this conversation. My first snap judgment was these two young ladies were having a conversation. They were sisters about their mother, right? That's kind of what I was gathering. But very quickly, within 30 or 60 seconds, I found out very quickly they were definitely not sisters, but one of them definitely did not like their mother. That conversation was, let me tell you, I wasn't even part of the conversation, and I was very uncomfortable. And I don't get comfortable over anything. And I was uncomfortable. The stuff this young lady was saying about her mom. And I thought, now, if what she was saying was true, which who knows, right? I didn't grow up in their house, but if it was true, then it sounds like mom doesn't deserve any honor if what she was saying is true. But instead of just shutting up, she went out of her way to dishonor her mom, right? And there's that old saying for a reason. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. So maybe one of the best ways to honor someone is just to keep your mouth shut about them and don't dishonor them. If that's the first step, which is a first step for me a lot of times, is just to shut up, right? Which I have a difficult time, I don't know if you can tell, but I have a difficult time doing that sometimes. Just to be quiet and not at least don't dishonor them. How do you honor your father and mother? They're not even alive anymore for some people in this room. And the answer is never dishonor them with the words that you speak. Talking about them among family. We kind of throw that out the door. Well, we're amongst family here. Let's bash, our sister or our brother. Man, come on. Honor. Will you be a person of honor? And then that commandment, now listen, I'm very serious about not changing the commandment, right? But it could then fill in anything. Honor and you can fill in the blank of whoever. And now it doesn't matter who it is because you have chosen to be a person of honor. You've chosen honor. You've chosen honor, not as something that you do, but as someone that you are. You are an honorable person. You will give honor where it's due, but because you are a person of honor, you will even give honor when that person doesn't deserve your honor. And then here's what happens. The very last part of the verse. I'll read this, and then some of you may have learned it a different way, but here's what it says of the Deuteronomy chapter 5 at the top. Then you will live a long, full life in the land your Lord God is giving you. The King James Version, the old version that I heard when I was a kid, says it like this. If you'll do this, if you'll be a person of honor, and you'll start right at home with mom and dad, honoring, then things will go well with you and you'll live a long life on earth. Now, I'm assuming there has been some people that have honored their families, but some things did not go well with them. And they may not have lived to be 115, right? So I don't know I'm not promising you anything, that if you will just at least do number 5, things are going to go great. You'll never have a problem again, and you're going to live to be really, really, really old. But here's what it appears happens when you and I choose honor. God honors those who honor. Listen, I get that you're having a wrestling match. I am too, in my mind, with certain people. But God honors those who honor. That's how important it is to Him. And that's how important it should be to me. So here's what's happened over the last few weeks. As I've been praying and praying and praying about today, I've had to ask myself a very tough question. So I'm not going to ask you a question today. I'm going to tell you the question I've been wrestling with for this past, several weeks. The question definitely is about my family. It's important to God. It should be important to me. The question is definitely, Dan, how are you doing in honoring mom and dad? I've got to ask myself that question. But I've got to even take it a step further. And I've got to ask myself this question, Dan, as a Christian, as a man, as a husband, and as a father, are you going to choose to live a life of honor? Are you going to be honorable, just not in your actions, but in giving honor? And can I tell you, it seems like very easy question to answer. It's not an easy question to answer. The answer can be yes until you run face to face with someone that you want to knock out. Right? Very easy. Yeah, person of honor. And then it doesn't go, and usually when we do that, something comes right in your face like, oh, I think I was going to get tested on this quick, I just made the decision 4 hours ago. And I know for a lot of us, we could honor just about everybody except for maybe a couple, right? So that is where this is going to matter most. And I've got a couple people in my head. Now, the really good thing is, though my family has been kind of cuckoo at times, maybe yours has too, I've gone through patches of time with my family that have been dark and tough. It's been difficult to honor at times. And I have not also lived honorably at times. But there's always going to be a couple people that'll roll around in our heads that we could say we're going to be people of honor, but that's a person we don't really want to. And so the decision has to be made now, not then. Now, will you be a person of honor? And here's what I can promise. God will honor you for it. When you honor and you don't want to, God will honor you. And when you honor and they still don't change, God will honor you. And when you honor and pray for them and love them, even though they don't deserve your prayer, deserve your love, and they definitely don't deserve your honor, God will honor you every time. Every time. But it's got to start right at home. So the question I've been asking myself is that will I be a man of honor, a husband of honor, a father of honor, a Christian that lives a life of honor? Maybe that's a good question for all of us. I don't know, because this has been a very personal message for me. Very personal. My family matters, and mom and dad matter. But the thing behind that is, will I be a person of honor? So here's my prayer for us today, and I want to pray for you. My prayer today is not necessarily, though partly, about your family. And my prayer isn't necessarily, though it is partly, about your parents, mom and dad, alive or not living, either way. That's not my biggest prayer for myself or for you, my biggest prayer is what you and I will leave here doing with honor. That's what's going to matter. Because then whether it's mom or dad or whoever, you've made the decision to be a person of honor. And though that road may be difficult and bumpy, your choice, you're going to draw a line in the sand. No, I will be a person of honor. Let me say a prayer for you today. Father, difficult stories from one end of a spectrum to the other are in this room today. Stories of pain and hurt and stories of joy and of laughter and, Lord, all centered around our families. We could extend that to our friends and to our colleagues and to those in leadership over us. And Father, my prayer today is for myself and for my church family. May we leave here wrestling with being a person of honor. Not because someone deserves it, not because they've earned it, but because as individuals we live a life of honor. We pray these things in Jesus' name. And the Flora-Bama family said,
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Dan Stone.
Whew, God, everybody stand up. Hey, right now, we're going to ask you to help with something. All these chairs got to come back over here. So while the band is playing here in a minute, we'll be moving chairs over into that closet and into that little cubby there. Hey, we're also having a baptism down the beach. So please, after you get the chairs put away, we'll wait on you. Come on down there and join us in that celebration. We say this every week. Romans 8 tells us that if God is for us, who can be against us? We'll see you on the beach.
Well, some glad morning when this life is over, I'll fly away to a land on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away. Oh, glory. I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Shadows of this life have gone, I'll fly away like a from prison bars and gone. I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away. Glory, I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Come on, Mike. Mr. Gary Johnson on the